You weren't in the first service to see so many children in the children's choir that came forward to sing for us this morning. And they were just delightful. I think children in worship are always delightful. And last week when we had the baptism, maybe you, like some of the other people here, were playing peekaboo with the babies. It's so tempting when the parents have their child and they're, got them looking over their shoulder and they're bouncing them in time with the music to make eye contact with that child. And once you've got eye contact, you start to communicate. And if you raise your eyebrows, they raise their eyebrows. And if you frown, they might frown. And you start making funny faces back and forth. I know I do this. But in our family, sometimes we try winking, raising our eyebrows. We even have a face called surprised owl. And we see if the child will mimic it back. And usually they do, because children, especially the tiny tots, are great mimics. They learn through imitation. They observe all of those around them, and they copy their actions in an attempt to accomplish what the people around them are doing. Certainly, the toys that we give them, the kitchen toys, the doctor's kits, the little toolboxes, they're all learning as they use those to practice and process what adults around them are doing in a safe way. Learning by imitation helps them to form those social bonds. It helps them to develop empathy. And plus, all those skills that they're learning, those hands-on skills, they can apply those to solve new and different problems. We are blessed to be a congregation that engages children in worship, in our choirs, in Sunday school, and in Crossroads, our Child Development Center. As Benjamin Franklin said, "Tell me and I'll forget. Show me and I might remember. Involve me and I will learn." Our children begin to learn about communion when they participate in communion with us. They watch the praise band sing, and then they understand the joy of singing, and they sing for us. They hear us tell the stories of Jesus, and they grow to be youth and young adults who, in turn, tell the story during the children's message. Imitation is the ability to learn behaviors by observing and practicing other people's actions. So, what better way for us to honor God and live our fullest life than to imitate Jesus? Our story today from the book of Acts tells us about a time when someone's life was profoundly changed by the imitation of Jesus. Tabitha, also known by her Greek name Dorcas, is introduced to us in this story right away with two surprises. First, she's dead. We don't even get to meet her, and she's already gone. Second, she is described as a disciple. That's a very unusual title for a woman of that day. However, she truly was a follower of Jesus, not just in name, but by the goodness of her life. She is renowned for her good works and her acts of charity. She's been an imitator of Jesus all of her life, and now she has died. Author Amy Butler notes, it is significant that she is surrounded by widows who are mourning her death. Those widows may have been recipients of Tabitha's goodness as they show off garments that she has made for them, the physical remnants of a life filled with caring for others. As we enter this story, we also learn that Peter was nearby in Lydda. He had called on Jesus' healing power, and a paralyzed man named Aeneas was able to walk again. Even without Facebook and Instagram, the news of this power spread quickly to Joppa. And so when Tabitha died, believers requested that Peter come to them. They didn't ask for resurrection, just for his presence. So we don't really know what they were expecting. To me, it appears that the community was gathered in grief, and they needed Peter to help them understand this and make sense of it, and guide them through this time. Butler writes, when Peter arrived on the scene, he did the only thing that he knew how to do. He imitated Jesus. This whole situation is very similar to what Jesus did in the healing of Jairus' daughter. There's a female who was ill and died, a request to come, mourners weeping, sending all the people out of the room, prayer, and then restoration and resurrection. Peter was one of only 3 disciples who watched over Jesus' shoulder as he took the hand of Jairus' daughter and said, Talitha come, which means, little girl, get up. Did that memory dance through Peter's mind as he turned to this beloved seamstress and said, Tabitha, get up, and then helped her to rise? I wonder if he was as surprised as everyone else when it worked. You and I may never witness such a resurrection. In my experience, the physically dead remain dead. However, God is constantly surprising us with new life, especially in circumstances where we can't see a positive way through. And it's clear that we are to imitate Jesus, to do what he did, to give work, to give people life. And the United Methodist Women is a ministry that offers new life. And it's so wonderful that we can celebrate this ministry on a weekend that celebrates caring women. The United Methodist Women are a community of women whose purpose is to know God and to experience freedom as a whole person through Jesus Christ, to develop a creative and supportive fellowship, and to expand the concept of mission through their participation in global ministries of the church. Their motto is faith, hope, and love in action. You might see them next weekend pouring strawberries over shortcake or working a bake table, but their reach is much broader than that. Right now, their main ministry is to support Arden House, a shelter for women escaping domestic violence. In Maryland last year, just 46 people died as a result of domestic violence, and a gun was used in 30 of those cases. 35 children became orphans. They were left without parents as a result of these tragedies. And 9 victims lived right here in Anne Arundel County. Throughout last year, there were more than 15,000 domestic violence-related crimes reported. And those are just the ones reported. Not every incident is reported. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men report being a victim of severe physical violence at the hands of an intimate partner. Even more have suffered verbal, emotional, sexual, and economic abuse. While physical abuse is the most lethal, all these other forms of abuse also destroy personhood. They crush people's lives and identity. I want you to listen to Jane's story. Jane managed a gift shop. She owned a car. She had developed good credit. She had an active social life. If she was your daughter or my daughter, we would be proud at what she had done in life. And when she married, she ignored the warning signs that there was another side to her Prince Charming. Time passed, and abuse became more frequent and intense. And so 6 years into her marriage, she found herself isolated from friends and family, living in a small house in the country. She was not allowed to use his car, not even for emergency care for their children. And one morning, during a particularly brutal attack, their 5-year-old dialed 911 for help. When the police came, despite the visible marks and bruises, they were unable to provide her with the aid that she needed. The husband disconnected the phone. Over the next few months, though, Jane made a plan. She obtained a car. She drove to a payphone, and she called a shelter for help. The 3 weeks in a shelter with her 5-year-old son and her 3-year-old daughter allowed her to find employment, housing, counseling, and legal advice. She says that she and her children are alive today because of the help that they received at the shelter. Arden House, recently relocated to Arnold, is much like the shelter where Jane found refuge. Women 18 years and up who are in immediate danger can stay there with their children for approximately 6 weeks. They not only receive refuge, they may also receive counseling and legal services, financial literacy, job skills training, ongoing group support, and mentoring. One survivor confessed that it takes a long time to break free. Victims often believe that they can, if they just love that other person enough, he or she will be healed from that harmful behavior. They think that they themselves are at fault. Their souls are crushed and they don't know where to turn for help. So I have printed the 24-hour hotline for our county at the bottom of this morning's bulletin. That phone will always be answered. And even if there isn't room at the Arden Rescue Home, even if there isn't room at Arden House, rescue will still be possible. And what I want you to know, or someone else in this situation to know, is that you are not alone. You are not to blame. You do not deserve to be abused, and you can get help. Jane's story could be anybody's story. It could be our story. It could be the story of our sons and daughters or our grandchildren. My own family has experienced this violence, and Frank and I are grateful to the United Methodist pastors who facilitated my daughter's escape. Last year, 300 people found sanctuary at Arden House. Half of them were under 5 years old. Our United Methodist women are grateful for the opportunity to support the YWCA work. We have donated personal items and toiletries, comforters, sheets, pillows, kitchen and household equipment, batteries and flashlights, and much more. Quarterly, our United Methodist women find a way to support the rescue, the resurrection of women and their children through Arden House. And they also hope to influence families so they won't need rescuing. Next week, the United Methodist Women has invited renowned educator and parent coach Joan Van Duren to come and share his wisdom of united parenting. And participants will learn simple steps to bring out the best in themselves and in their children or grandchildren. That's what faith, hope, and love in action looks like. That's our attempt at imitating Jesus to give others life. But the United Methodist Women is just one of the groups in our church, in our congregation, striving to imitate Jesus. The United Methodist Men gave us a mother-daughter banquet last night. We hosted a funeral yesterday. The Strawberry Festival is coming next week. The Breakfast Club will begin when school is out. We are not just a busy church. We are a congregation that wants to imitate Jesus and help others to know, love, and serve God. Now, it is heartwarming to play peekaboo with the babies in church. but our deepest desire is for them to grow and know the abundant life of Jesus. And that's my desire for each of you too. There are ways for each of us to grow in faith. And if you're wondering what your next growth step might be, give me a call. We'll meet for coffee. We have so many learning and serving activities, so many we can't publish them all in the bulletin. Tabitha was a disciple of Jesus because she imitated him in love and service. Peter spent so much time with Jesus, he couldn't help imitate what he'd seen Jesus do, even to the point of giving someone new lives. Our lives should also be imitations, and not cheap ones, but imitations that reflect the power of the original Jesus. May you go into this week living and loving like the Master. Amen.